Mantis Blades are strong. I'm here to tell you you can complete the entire game on the hardest difficulty pretty much only using them without any trouble whatsoever. You can drop your enemies before they fire a single bullet using speed, slow motion and high damage. Firing a gun with this build is literally trolling, but if you're into that, you could watch it anyway and maybe be inspired to do your own hybrid gun Mantis Blade version, which is definitely possible. I won't be showing you where to find any mods or cyberware I'm using, but know that I bought just about everything from river dogs around the city. With that out of the way, here goes my Mantis Blade Cyberpsycho build.
Stay where you are! And don't fucking move a muscle!
You'll die before you can pull that trigger. I guarantee you.
Nice try. You're bluffing.
To start off, I'll quickly summarize the build. It relies on one-shotting enemies with the Mantis Blade heavy attack. We'll be moving fast and using a good amount of survivability related perks to help keep us alive. We're also using slow motion to our full advantage and will be completely leaving behind any form of hacking since we'll be using an operating system that doesn't have any RAM. If you click Reflexes, you'll find this tab called Blades, which is where we'll be investing a lot of our points and finding a lot of our damage. Most of the stuff in here is useful, but I'm here to tell you what you need and what is optional. First off, we want to increase the damage we do with our heavy attacks. At level 1 we can get Roaring Waters, Sting Like a Bee and Flight of the Sparrow. We can get Blessed Blade at level 10. And the real important one, Judge, Jury and Executioner at level 15. You want to get this one as soon as you can, as it will really bump up your heavy attack damage. Fury Blast at level 15 is also worth picking up. Even though we'll be one-shotting our opponents most of the time, this one can be useful during more difficult encounters such as boss fights. For survivability, we definitely want to pick up Slow and Steady at level 1. I also recommend picking up Crimson Dance for an increased chance to apply bleeding. Then we want to get Bloodlust at level 12 to heal when we apply bleeding and heal when we hit bleeding targets. And at level 18 we unlock what's probably my favorite perk in the tree, Deathbolt. The health on kill is definitely nice, but the real game changer is the increased movement speed on kill. You might also have noticed this juicy boy down at the bottom, but getting the blade skill to level 20, which is required to unlock it, takes, I don't know, like 2 full playthroughs. The point is you won't be getting it for a long time, and once you get it you'll already be dealing more than enough damage, trust me. Any perks in this tree I didn't mention yet are optional. For reference, this is what my current page looks like. Moving on to the body attribute. When investing attribute points in body, we get more health points, stamina, and more melee damage. Jumping into the athletic skills, we will find more perks to boost our survivability. We want to max out Invincible for more health, True Grit for extra stamina, and Steel and Chrome for extra melee damage. If you get to body level 18, you of course want to get Steel Shell, but to be fair, I completed the game before unlocking this one myself. The same can be said for Indestructible, available at level 20. The rest of the perks here are optional. This is how I invested my points during my playthrough, and as you can see I invested in health regen, but it doesn't seem to impact my gameplay a whole lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and call those optional. A final shout out to Pack Mule, this thing helped me a lot. Guns are heavy, you will be picking up a lot of them, just get this one. The next attribute we will be looking at is Cool. Investing points in this gives us some extra crit damage and increases our resistances. Under the tab Cold Blood we'll find a couple of interesting perks. First off, you want to max out Cold Blood, which passively increases your movement speed per kill. Next, get Will to Survive to increase all resistances per Cold Blood stack. Get Critical Condition for an increased duration. Then get Defensive Clotting for more armor, and if you decide to go for health regen in the body attribute, you can pick up Rapid Blood Flow here for more health regen. Finally, you can put a point into Coldest Blood to pump up the perk effects if you have more points to spend. In general, I would recommend to invest at least 18 points in body before investing too heavily in Cool. This is not what I did in my playthrough, but in hindsight I think perks like Steel Shell and Indestructible in body are worth more than what you get from investing in Cool. If you decide to invest more in Cool, almost everything here is a good choice except for Quick Transfer. That wraps up the attribute and perk points. Next we'll go over Cyberware implants and mods. To start off, you want to get the Mantis Blades. You need 15 street cred to get them. Until then you can use guns, any other melee weapon like a katana, or whatever you have at hand.
Truly, everything.
He's got a gun!
I recommend you upgrade the Mantis Blades as you go, whenever you can afford to. There's a few different ways to get the legendary blades also for free. I simply bought them at a river dock. Be aware that items will be unlocking at the river docks as you increase your street cred to the maximum level 50. In regards to what blade you should be using for the Mantis Blades, I just use the physical ones as I find them the most reliable. I also have this rotor that increases my attack speed by 45%, and then this other mod that increases my crit hit chance by 10%. Because I'm already one-hitting enemies, I prefer the higher hit chance over the higher crit damage. You can always visit your stats to figure out what you might find best for yourself. After getting the Mantis Blades, you want to get the reinforced tendons implant for your legs. This allows you to double jump, which is incredibly helpful when chasing down enemies that are otherwise difficult to get to. In my frontal cortex, I have the heal on kill implant, which is definitely one of the better ones I've seen around. For optics, I'm just using something random. What's important here is what mods I'm using for these optics. I am using the target analysis mod. You don't really want to be using the Mantis Blades as your main weapon without this mod. It makes all attacks non-lethal, and as you might or might not be aware of, the Mantis Blades have a lethal execution that looks like this. The mod entirely disables this execution, which is very good for multiple reasons. I made a whole video about why the execution sucks. The TLDR is that the animation takes forever, you get no health on kill, and it cancels out slow motion effects. It will also trigger all the time. The video can be found in the description. Maybe you're lucky enough and you're playing this game in the actual year of 2077 and this has all been fixed. In that case, go ahead and remove the mod and have fun chopping heads off again. Because unfortunately, the gore is gone when you use this mod, which to any Cyberpsycho is a big downside. Another mod I'm using in the optics is the threat detector. This one is also good to pick up. It makes it easier to find those last few enemies. Alright, moving on. For my operating system, I'm using the Militech Falcon. On activation, it slows time by 30% for 18 seconds and boosts my damage greatly while active. There are other equally viable options out there, such as the Warp Dancer, with a shorter active slow motion effect and cooldown. Choosing between these two comes down to personal preference. I myself appreciate the longer slow motion effect of 18 seconds. This really gives me time to thin out the forces when engaging large groups of enemies. One mod I definitely recommend for this implant is the Arasaka software, which increases the time it takes for enemies to notice you by 70%. Using this, you can actually clear large groups of enemies before a single of them are alerted. Next up in my nervous system, I'm using the Neofiber implant, which gives me plus 15% evasion. Just an overall amazing implant. I'm also using a synaptic accelerator, which slows time whenever I'm detected by enemies. A good substitute to this is the Kurentikov that slows time when dodging. I don't dodge a whole lot, so I went with the other. Again, this one really comes down to personal preference. I have just two more implants I want to mention. First off, there's this thing called Second Heart. It's amazing. It brings me back if I actually screw up and die, which to be fair absolutely does happen every now and then. I don't know if you heard of them, but they're called explosive canisters. Oops. The final one I'll mention is this thing called Dense Marrow. If you're at the point where you no longer have issues with stamina, it's a pretty good one to pick up for the extra 15% melee damage.
Whoa! Think fleas like you just get in for free?
To wrap up the build, I've gathered here 5 quick playstyle tips. Tip number 1, stay on the move at all times. You deal a lot of damage and you can one-hit most enemies with heavy attacks. But standing still will get you killed pretty fast on the highest difficulty. Make sure you move with cover and try if possible not to run directly at gunfire. Tip number 2, hold left mouse button and release to leap at your enemy. It will close the range to your target and allows us to move in between targets at speeds that is mostly limited by our own ability to execute these leaps. This makes the combat super fast paced, and it does require a bit of focus, as missing your target, which is possible, can cause confusion as to where your target is and put you out of position at the same time. This loses you valuable time, especially during slow motion. So if you're missing a lot, try to exercise a little patience when you're aiming the leaps. Tip number 3. During slow motion, you're as close to invincible as you're going to get. Make the most of this effect and try to clear as many enemies as you can while the effect is up. When I enter combat, I let the slow motion on detection trigger. Then when that slow motion period ends, I wait for the appropriate time to activate my Falcon. I will never activate my Falcon preemptively, since one slow motion period can cancel out the other. This means that if I trigger a 18-second slow motion period and then trigger a 2-second one, the 18-second slow motion period is cancelled and the slow motion ends after 2 seconds. I hope that made sense. Tip number 4, if you need to top your health off, you can use light attacks to regain health when facing an isolated target. Apart from them, try to limit your use of light attacks and stay away from them altogether during slow motion. You can't do combos during slow motion, which makes it really inefficient compared to a heavy attack. Not being able to do combos also decreases the amount of healing we're able to get from hitting enemies. Hopefully this is something that will be changed in the future, as it simply doesn't make any sense. The final tip is not really a tip. I just wanted to do a shout out to this build's worst enemy, the explosive canister. These suckers will end you out of nowhere, and you will rarely see them before it's too late. This is where I especially love that second health implant. That concludes my Mantis Blade build. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll also love to hear what mods you prefer using with the Mantis Blades. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the video and found it somewhat helpful. If you did, throw a like my way. If you didn't, throw a dislike. That is it for me. Thanks for watching. I'm out.